We welcome everyone again to the afternoon session. So please, we will start shortly as one of our main speakers has a plane to catch. So this is why we changed the program a little bit. Thank you for adapting also for the changes this morning. We are trying to be as agile as possible, even with the program of the day. We welcome everyone to this panel, and I give the word to Daniela and Marko for this panel that we finish by 3 p.m. normally. So thank you all.
Okay. So a warm welcome also from my side to everybody, dear guests. My name is Daniela. I'm working for Script, being head of the innovation here at the Ministry of Education in Luxembourg. And it's a real pleasure to have you here and to talk about that very important question of AI in education and what to do with that. And in this spirit, we also have now the panel on exploring teaching with AI, needs, challenges, and opportunities. I will do my very best to moderate that and to get that in the flow, but I have no doubts about that. Still, my co-host today is Michael.
Hi, everybody. My name is Michael Hallissy, and I'm from Ireland. So I will try to speak slow. Because this topic gets me excited, so I tend to speak very quickly. So I represent our company H2 Learning. We have been working in this space of digital education for 21 years now. We work closely with the ministry in Ireland, with Anthony and others, his colleagues in the ministry. And also I work with the European Commission. I'm a researcher to the Delta Working Group, and we have been a partner in the projects. That's me.
Okay. So the title of this panel, but also of the whole AI Footy project, highlights the importance of teachers in teaching in this whole universe of AI in the classroom. And we've heard it several times this morning that every support at every level you can think of, whether it be teacher training, guidance, AI tools, should really have a strong teacher voice there and should be based on teachers' needs and their perception of challenges and opportunities laying ahead. So tomorrow on the same stage, we will have teachers talking to us and really getting us insights from their perspective. Today, we're very delighted to have it tackled like more from a research point of view to set the scene for further discussions. So we're really delighted to welcome our distinguished panelist speakers. And I would propose that they introduce themselves because I will forget certain parts of your very comprehensive AI knowledge and your experience in the field. So please welcome Wayne, Margarida, and Mutlu. Margarida, would you mind having really a concise introduction of yourself?
Yeah. Oops, thank you. I'm working in the field of education with a very open perspective. Then I'm a researcher, but I'm also a teacher. I'm a parent, and I love collaborating with persons from different fields. And one of the reasons why we were advancing on these fields is because we collaborated in a JETENUM that Axel was presented previously, that was initiated with Alain Tillet and other colleagues. And it's a similar project that the one that is led by Colin, that is about, we started 3 years ago about advancing how we can support creative pedagogies through the uses of AI, and then open the collaboration to all stakeholders in education, from the Faculty of Education, companies, the Department of Education in our regional level, and everyone that could be interested in the field.
Maybe Mutlu, could you just jump in?
Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Mutlu Cukurova. I am Professor of Learning and Artificial Intelligence at Université Côte, London. I have been doing research in AI in education for quite a while now, with a strong interest in how do we design, develop, and evaluate AI technologies to support complex problem solving and learning how to learn those higher order thinking skills as part of my research interest. behind this, I have been the editor-in-chief of British Journal of Educational Technology. I have been leading the UCLAD team at UCL, doing learning analytics and AI ed. And more recently, I have been chairing an international group with some of the colleagues here, including colleague Lydia, with UNESCO, aiming to design the UNESCO AI competency framework for teachers. And I really look forward to discussing these important topics, and so lovely to see a lot of participation from teachers in this kind of events as well.
Great, thank you. Wayne, would you mind?
Sure. Hi, everybody. I think I should start by owning up that I'm a skeptic when it comes to AI and education. So I've been involved in this space for a decade. I've been involved in education and technology for much longer besides. And my area is, I take what I like to call the critical studies approach to AI and education. My work, I'm based in the same lab as Mutlu, as it happens, in UCL, but half of my work is spent with international agencies. So I've been working as a consultant for UNESCO for many years, and some of my reports were mentioned on the screen earlier, so thank you for that, Alan. And more recently, I've been working with the Council of Europe, and we have managed to convince the ministers of education from all 46 member states that there really needs to be regulation for the use of AI in education. And so that's work that the Council of Europe are going to be working on over the next couple of years, and I'm really pleased to be a part of that.
So brilliant. I mean, what a panel. So, I mean, our job is to just give you some questions and let you off, and we will stay quiet, which is hard for me to do. So I suppose the first area we identified on this panel was needs. And I mean, a lot of the literature around AI and teachers is that this is going to save them time and it's going to make them better teachers and blah, blah, blah. So thinking of the tools, and I'm thinking in a very generic way here, are they going to meet the needs of teachers? And I'll start with you, Wayne. What we have today.
I think that those two key things that have been mentioned about AI and education today even, one is that it will save teacher time, the other is that it will personalize learning for individual students. I'd like to point out that these claims have been made for over 100 years about technologies and education. It hasn't happened yet, and I think it's very unlikely it's going to happen anytime soon. So when we introduce AI technologies into classrooms, does it save them time? No, but what it does is it shifts what they do. Does it improve the outcomes? We don't know, because there is insufficient research in that space. Does it personalize? Well, it really depends on what you mean by personalize. If you mean, does each student follow their own pathway? Maybe, but all of the tools that I'm aware of, or the vast majority of the tools that have been developed, they're all about taking students to the same end goal. So that's not really that personal, is it? It's all about taking them to the same end goal. So how can we address the needs of teachers? Well, I think for my part, the whole project of AI in education, its 45-year history, was misdirected. Now, I'm not criticizing my colleagues in that field. They've done some amazing work over those years. But the problem was they started out with the Bloom 2 sigma effect. If we can have one-to-one tuition, that's 2 standard deviations better than when students are in a classroom. And the question was, well, we don't have enough teachers to have one-to-one tuition for every student, so can we do this with machines? And that has been much of the ambition in the field for those 45 years. And I think that's misdirected, because the idea that we can automate what teachers do, what human teachers do in classrooms, really fundamentally misunderstands what teachers do in classrooms. And instead, I think the expertise of our colleagues needs to be redirected to think about, well, how can we develop tools that will genuinely support teachers, human teachers, to do what they, the human teachers, wish to do in the classroom. Without that, I think we're on a hiding to nothing. So one of the areas when we're talking about teachers' needs, I think literacy is really important. We've heard talk about AI literacy, but for me, I don't just talk about literacy of knowing how the tech works and knowing how to create the tech. That's important, but I think that's literally only half the story. And the other half of the story is about understanding the impact of these tools on humans, on teachers, on students. And without that, I don't think our teachers are in a good place to be able to make good quality decisions about what tools they could be using to support what they're trying to achieve in the classrooms. One thing I just wanted to say before I finish is I've talked about the vast majority of the work in the AI Ed community, these tuition systems, etc. But there are definitely some members of that community who are trying to do different things. And the reason I'm saying this is because my colleague Mutlu is one of those. And I didn't mean to undermine his work.
So I think that's a nice segue to go to Mutlu. What do you think?
Oh, well, okay. Thank you very much. Maybe it would be useful to start from the point that Wayne has just started talking about. I think if we look at the history of AI in education, most of the existing literature does indeed focus on those technologies that were designed and developed for facing students, that they were aiming to adapt a particular content, adapt particular feedback, or the pace for the delivery of one-to-one teaching, as well Wayne was pointing towards. I think there are various reasons why this is the case. I think one of the main reasons being that many teachers, or when the field has become quite popular, there was a lot of existing evidence, however this evidence is generated, that would indicate the value of this kind of one-to-one tutoring. So the goal of the field has been towards this creating machines that are as perceived as the human tutor. So the goal was quite, I think, ambitious in many senses. So these kind of projects where the support of the tool aimed towards a teacher that would then structure their practice has almost always considered as a transition point towards full autonomy. It was not good enough AI if it was aiming towards this kind of support. But this has been shifting significantly within the last decade or so, many people recognizing the limitations of these technologies and adjusting their practice and research accordingly. So I think it goes without saying that these kind of projects like AI4T that aims to work towards AI technologies that are teacher-facing are very welcome, and I think we need a lot more of these. Having said that, maybe where we would slightly disagree with Wayne is the lack of evidence in terms of the value of these kind of teacher-facing AI technologies. Obviously, there is always space for further evidence, higher number of RCTs, maybe more longitudinal studies, as it was discussed in the previous study. But there are also quite a lot of good quality research studies that are indicating the potential value of these kind of technologies. There are studies that looked at the impact of the use of these technologies to support teachers' planning of their lessons based on the insights generated from the homework activities of their students, for instance. Assessment is a really good example. It's not assessment, it's assessment with the T. It's a really good example of these kind of technologies, for instance, that has been evaluated in quite large scale RCTs within the USA, indicating the value of these technologies. There is some evidence supporting teachers' implementation activities in their real-world classroom. So these are kind of technologies that would aim to shift a teacher's attention towards a particular student or towards a particular activity within the classroom. So while students are working with an intelligent tutoring system or an adaptive platform, the teacher can have a dashboard that indicates those students who need the most immediate support. And in our own work, we have been looking at the impact of these kind of technologies, and we can indeed show some evidence that the teacher's practice in classroom does change. change. So we have been observing, for instance, that those teachers who use teacher-facing AI technologies tend to spend statistically significantly less amount of time on close monitoring action. So going right next to each individual student, trying to understand where they struggle, and they have been spending most of their time on scaffolding those students who need their help the most. And obviously, these are relatively small-scale research projects, but they are indicative of the potential of these kind of technologies. So maybe one thing that is useful to highlight here, this change in practice that we are observing that has impact on both the teacher's practice, but also the impact on students' learning gains might have significant implications at the ecosystem level. So a change in teachers' practice in classroom does not only occur in vacuum. So if a teacher spends statistically significantly more amount of time in scaffolding activities and not really observing students, that might have significant impact on other aspects of the teaching profession, which requires a lot of further work. So to me, these kind of discussions require a little bit more nuanced arguments with regards to what is being supported. Is it at the task level? Is it at the teacher's skill and capabilities level? Or is it at the ecosystem level? And evaluating the impact at these different levels and talking about evidence at these different levels of specificity would maybe be a lot more useful. So maybe I'll stop here with regards to this first comment.
Ooh, boy, thank you. Really good. Margarida, what do you think? Do you think that these tools are addressing the needs of teachers? I mean, over lunch, one of the teachers, a Luxembourg teacher, said to me, I said, so what are the needs you have? And he hasn't mentioned any of the things that neither Wayne or Mutlu have mentioned. He mentioned administration and all of the paperwork he has to do. So any thoughts?
I'm talking from the perspective of pre-service teachers education. That means these teachers that are preparing after for being in the classroom, but also who are in this hybrid modality of going part of the time in our place in the Faculty of Education and the other time in the classroom. And I will say, before generative AI, you ask a teacher, is AI a thing for you? And the answer is clearly no. It was like, what is that? And this is very far from our problems. In the classroom, we have, we need to manage the different levels of the students. We need to manage the changes that are made on the curriculum. We need to manage a lot of things on our daily basis. And AI was even not understood as something. Then it happens that ChatGPT arrived, and a lot of teachers in our places and pre-service teachers start to say, oh, my learners or the parents or the students are using that. What is that about? But the question was not even, is this meeting my needs? It's the first question for a lot of them is, what is that about? How it works? Then it was from a place of first trying to understand how it works. And then I will say that what we have observed in this last month, it has, because it's now an evidence that there's personal uses of these technologies for all the actors in education. You cannot longer avoid the minimum of AI literacy and the minimum of reflection of the implications of the use of especially generative AI in the practice. Then now the needs that are clearly identified is that we need all our teachers, but also the parents and all educational actors to have the basics of what is AI, because there's a lot of mystification about things that AI can do, and sometimes in the positive, another side in the negative perspective. Then we need to help them to have a better understanding of what these technologies, how these technologies works, And then the second part is we only can address the needs of the teachers if we are engaging in co-creation with them. That means that at the same time, there's amazing initiatives and task-specific tools that appears in the market. In France, adaptive math and other tools that are very task-specific in certain domains. There's a need that the teacher has the opportunity, starting in pre-service education, but after also in service education, to enter the co-design process of what are the specific way these technologies can serve or not the students in the classroom. Then I think we cannot avoid that there's a need now to at least of having an understanding. Yeah.
Good. Yeah, I'm going to hand to Daniela, and she's going to now focus on some of the challenges, maybe.
Yeah, I think you made the perfect bridge, Margarida, when talking about that mystification, which is out there, and then like how to bridge that, to come to that co-creation and really like that collaboration on AI tools and on the whole topic. So there are big challenges laying ahead. Mm-hmm. And I mean, they're not only the normal suspects like data privacy, IP, or transparency questions, but also the elephant in the room is somewhat how to make that teacher AI interaction really happening in the class. How should that look like? And coming from this perspective, we're talking about challenges. And as Michael always said, like the literature on technology and especially on AI can be read as a literature of hope and disappointment. So we're now on the challenges side. Concrete question to you, Mutlu, maybe. So what do you see at the main challenges for teachers in an AI featured classroom?
Oh, wow, okay. But I can certainly see quite a lot of challenges, and maybe I can try to classify these into the three categories that I initiated in the earlier comments with regards to task level challenges and maybe teacher skills and competency related challenges and the ecosystem level challenges. To me, one of the major challenges with regards to the task level considerations are about to what extent the AI use can be structured in a way that the skill atrophy of teachers is somehow inhibited. By which what I mean is that, so we can use AI technologies to replace certain tasks. So you can ask AI to select certain appropriate questions for a particular student, and the teacher can take these selected questions and then build upon these to deliver their own intervention. Or you can use AI as an opportunity to complement existing practices of teachers. For instance, in our own work, we have been investigating collaborative learning significantly. And one of the things that we are looking at is computer vision systems that detect certain behavioral indications of effective collaboration. And the teacher sees this as insights and then tries to bring their own interpretation to complement about what would be the best intervention for this particular situation. Or the teachers can use AI in a way that would augment their intelligence. And I think this is the part that we are having significant challenges. How do we create opportunities where the teachers can input into the AI technologies, challenge their recommendations, suggestions, so they are always actively thinking about what would be the right thing to do? And this augmentation is a huge significant challenge at the task level. I know this is very researchy, so let me move towards a little bit higher level challenges. With regards to skill level, I think we have significant challenges about how do we develop teachers' competencies so that they can use these technologies effectively and ethically. And I think one of the major challenges there is to be able to bring in this holistic consideration about relevant teacher competencies. It is not only about teaching teachers on the techniques and applications of AI technologies. It is an important part of teachers' competency development, but it's not enough at all. There are considerations that relate to human agency and human-centered mindset, those skills that relate to these, skills that are related to ethics, of AI and improving teachers' competency on these ethics, skills that are related to pedagogical implementations of these technologies and the new transformative pedagogies that are required, and skills that are associated with these higher order thinking skills. What does it mean now that these technologies are becoming part of everyday life of teachers, that relates to their self-regulated skills, for instance, that relates to their self-efficacy on using these technologies. So a challenge for me that relates to skill level is how do we bring in these holistic considerations into teachers' competency development? And last thing that I would mention is this ecosystem level challenges. We have been looking at country level adoption of AI technologies. What factors actually influence the real world adoption of AI technologies in classrooms? And this is not really a survey-driven study that we asked whether you have used AI technologies or not. We have been literally looking at the data from the tool itself to be able to see if they're actually using it and to what extent they are using it, and then trying to see what factors influence this adoption. And it's very interesting. Obviously, all of these, expected factors like their knowledge of the AI tool, their self-efficacy, the reliability of the tool do matter. But also there are a lot of issues that are associated with infrastructure of the school in which these tools are implemented. The support mechanisms that the teachers are receiving from others to be able to go to if they are having a problem while they are using these AI technologies. Governance issues in the sense that if there is limited buy-in from the leadership of the school, then the adoption of these technologies are not going to really work out. So to me, these kind of ecosystem level factors are equally important, but often ignored in many of the existing research and practice. So these are some of the challenges at the ecosystem level.
Thanks a lot, Mutlu, for that very comprehensive insight into that more ecosystem approach. Margarida, I know from your research that you're very much into teacher practice, working collaboratively with them. So what would be then your insights from your research on the main challenges?
Yeah, main challenges and opportunities. Then one of the, I agree with all these aspects that has been said, because I think the ecosystem is a big thing, because this is an innovation, and innovation requires human support and a community. And I think this is one of the things that is super important there, and among the best practices to address these challenges. Within the around the Nice area, there's the Maison de l'Intelligence Artificielle. This is the House of Artificial Intelligence, and Terra Numérica. There are two places. Then it's not just a virtual place, but it's a physical place. Then teachers can go there with their classrooms and experience with different activities, and then have a human. Very important, this human support of facilitators in order to identify what are maybe the misconceptions they are having, ideas they can develop in the classroom. Then I think this part of community and support is super important, and that means that there's a need of a culture. We need a culture of innovation, then creating safe context for trying things that maybe are not working well. Then the teachers we are collaborating with on co-designing activities, sometimes they are trying things in the classroom, and the first time they are trying, it's not perfect. And it's important to help them to say, okay, this is an experimentation. Then next iteration, what could be done better, etc. But that means that we accept this vulnerability on thinking that teaching is an activity that requires iterative improvements in order to find ways to adapt things. And this dynamic approach to the integration of AI, I think it's very important, because technologies are also moving in a very fast way. Then among these competencies, one of the aspects we try to support among our pre-service and in-service teachers is the tolerance to ambiguity, in the sense that we don't control everything. We will not be in control of of all the outputs, and the aspect that we need to consider this process as a never-ending iteration process in which we allow that things that are maybe not working in the first stage, and we continue to advance and share these aspects with other persons. Then a lot of community and culture for supporting this integration.
Thanks a lot. Wayne, you introduced yourself as being quite a skeptical person when it comes to certain aspects of this discussion on AI in education. What is your stand when it comes to challenges? Is it a myth? Are there challenges, and which are the most burning ones?
I think the biggest challenge is that teachers just don't have the support, the training that they need to be able to evaluate whether any particular tool is worthy of their time, worthy of putting in front of their students. You know, Mutlu earlier said there's lots of indicative evidence that this works, and indicative evidence that that works. But I wouldn't get into a car where there was indicative evidence that the car was going to stop. I wouldn't get into a plane when there was indicative evidence. I think we need more than that. And you know, this is a conversation you can imagine that Mutlu and I have had over many months, years. But I would still argue that to a greater extent, I mean, there is, yeah, I'm happy to say it, there is no independent evidence at scale for the efficacy or the safety or the positive impact of these tools on classrooms. The assessment study that was mentioned is the one that's always mentioned because it's the one that was done. But knowing what happened with assessments doesn't tell us about the other 1,000 tools that are out there that teachers are bombarded with day in, day out. It doesn't tell us about, you know, the wild west of these tools. So it's very, very challenging. So I think that's the biggest challenge that teachers have, is that they're bombarded with these ideas from the TV, from the newspapers. They're bombarded with companies and knocking on the doors and speaking to the head teachers, asking you to use these tools. So I think that's, for me, is the biggest challenge. And when we come to some of the tools that are being used at the moment, so, you know, ChatGPT, I'll use that as shorthand. You know, I suspect that the teachers that took part in the surveys that we were told about this morning, I don't buy it. I really don't. I don't think they understand. But I don't just blame teachers. I don't think that most people understand. I also particularly don't think, with respect to some of our colleagues here today, that most policymakers don't understand. They don't understand how these tools work. And the problem with something like the explosion of ChatGPT and others over the past year is that the outputs look amazing. And of course, the skills that have gone into developing these tools is amazing. But the outputs look amazing. But if you actually dig beneath that amazing exterior, you realize just how bad they are, how they make things up, how they're very, very selective, how they're going to disempower certain voices. So I think expecting teachers to be able to navigate their way through this wild west of tools for which there is very limited evidence, if any, I think it is a huge problem. And I think the other challenge is the focus that we have on these tools as being for learning, full stop. You know, education is not just about learning. It's not just about getting stuff from one place to another, from a teacher's head to a student's head, or from an IT system, whatever it is, into a student's head. That's not what education's about. It's part of the story. But other parts of the story are the child, the student becoming the best human being that they can become, to self-actualize. Another part of the story is for the child, the student, to become a useful contributor to society. Now, these tools don't engage with any of those things really at all. Now, there might be the odd one here or there that does, but in general, the vast majority do not. And so you could imagine a tool that on learning full stop is brilliant. In 3 months, it gets 3 years progress. We could conceive of that. But if that tool really disempowered teachers, really undermine the agency of students, really destroy the ecosystem, the conversational relationships within the classroom. And frankly, I don't care how good it is at getting stuff in students' head, because I think education is worth far more than that. So for me, the real problem here, the real challenge, to answer your question, is that we expect teachers to be able to make judgments about things when actually there isn't the evidence to do so.
Okay, yeah, I think the issue of criticality is coming out a lot in what all of you've been saying. Actually, the word literacies, two of you mentioned the word literacies, and you know, we heard from Axel in the last session about literacy as well. We've about 10 minutes for the panel for the last question, which is going to focus on the opportunities. So I suppose, where are the areas here that you see the greatest opportunities for AI and for all of the related issues that go with it? And Margarida, I'll start with you on this one.
Yeah, I'm learning, human learning.
Lifelong.
Yeah, and just on before the opportunities on the, I agree that the fact that there's small evidence, but still on very task specific that cost a lot to develop. There's some tools that either game-based learning, or in other domain specific, which after a lot of task modeling and tests has shown some improvements. And I think I will a little bit disagree in the sense that yes, there's not, we cannot generalize, and in the education we need to be very domain and task specific. And the good news is that maybe it's starting that there's some studies in which specific tools have proven to help on supporting certain aspects on when there's a correct and well-developed adaptive learning in some tools. And I agree that all teachers cannot navigate all these aspects, but at the same time, I disagree on the fact that if the role of the school is to support citizens, to support the education of citizens that can be active and maintain agency in society, in a society in which we are having these algorithmic aspects that are running a lot of services and a lot of aspects in our daily lives. It's super important. All actors in education feel concerned about that and understand the basics, that the person who is who will work even as a driver for a company that is using an app for I will not tell names, but you imagine this person, the fact that this person has not a basic understanding of what is the algorithm he's working for, it's for me a problem. I think it's super important that in our society, there's these technologies that has permitted some advancements, and the opportunity for education is that we need to support all learners to become more aware about the understanding of digital, how digital technologies work, in order to support the agency and to support teachers in the use of these tools, or the decision of not using these tools. But if they are not having the basic knowledge and how it works, how this can support the personalization in the classroom, etc., they cannot make decisions. And I'm believing, and I'm an advocate that teachers have the last word in their pedagogy, but for having this last word on what we are doing in the classroom in the interest of every one of our learners, we need to have an understanding on what are these companies proposing to us, how it works, is this supporting the ethical concerns, is the data correctly respected? Well, all these things, the teachers need to be supported in this understanding in order to take advantage. And just on opportunities, I think it's these tools, as you've pointed, can help on decision making in the classroom. Then some tools provide dashboards about and at the university level too, about progression of the learners, and it's about how how the teacher can be supported through these tools, and how the teachers can know what are the different range of tools and integration potential in order to them to decide. And for that, we need to develop a better culture, digital culture in general, but also an AI culture, in order that these teachers, instead of saying, oh, this is too far from me, and this is not concerning me, these persons can say, yes, this is concerning me, and I'm having the basics in order to make informed decisions for my students.
Yeah, no, really, really interesting. And again, you're going deeper and deeper into a profile of this teacher who I think is going to be a very skilled and competent and very valued person. Anyway, I'm just thinking as you're speaking, will we be able to hang on to them? I'm just conscious of time, and maybe I'll go to Wayne next, and I'll give Mutlu the last word. You know, just thinking on the opportunities. I know there are lots of challenges, but I think there are, we're getting into data here, and we're getting into we live in a data world. So maybe Wayne, what do you think? Opportunities. Where should we start looking next, do you think?
Well, I'm sorry, before I answer that, I do have to respond to this.
This is the nightmare panic panel. They will go where they want, and that's fine. Go.
Margarita started by saying that she disagreed with what I was saying, but then everything she said I agreed with, so I'm not quite sure where we disagree. For me, there are two aspects of, I refer to as AI and education, which comprises two things: teaching and learning with AI versus teaching and learning about AI. Teaching and learning about AI is AI literacy. I fundamentally believe that's exactly what we should be doing. And my point is that teachers cannot be expected to make rational decisions about whether or not to teach and learn with AI if they haven't had the support and the training to help them understand what AI is doing. So, for example, most of the teaching, I was at an event in Slovenia, just 2 months ago. We had 60 teachers from Europe and Asia, and it was absolutely clear that, number one, they all equated AI with generative AI. It was the same thing for them. Number two, when we talked about generative AI, they did not understand how it worked, what its limitations were. So I completely agree. That has got to be the starting point. And my argument is, without that, they cannot make rational decisions about what tools to use and what tools not to use. So in terms of the opportunities, I think the opportunity is we need to ask our expert computer science colleagues to stop trying to develop tools that replace teacher functions, because they don't. What they should be doing is using their expertise to develop tools that actually answer the issues that teachers really have. As you mentioned about, administration is a big one. But this is where the problem is. A little research I wanted to do was, step one, bunch of teachers. What are the problems that you have in your life? Not allowed to use word technology or AI in any of that, but what are the problems you have? Okay, we summarize that. Step two, we have a group of AI experts in the room. These are the problems we want you to solve, not the problems you think. One of the big things, one of the big traditions in AI and education is about dropout. Now, dropout, I accept, is an important problem, but it's not one of the major problems, but it's a problem that can be addressed. So that's why the focus is there. Instead of the community deciding where they should be looking at, let's teachers decide where they should be looking. And once they come up with their ideas, their possible approaches, then the third step, bring them all together, and they have to sell their ideas to the teachers. Does this genuinely support you to do what you need to do? So for me, that's the real opportunity, is to put teachers back at the center, to give teachers genuine, high quality AI literacy training and support that addresses both the technical dimension, how it works, how it doesn't work, how to create it, and for at least 50% of the time, the human impact, the human dimension. Things like fake news, things like how generative AI can disempower minority people, minority languages. There is so much there that needs to be talked about that's never talked about. So that's the opportunity. Get the literacy right, and then the teachers can actually start using these tools effectively.
Okay, great. I think what I'm hearing there, yeah, go. What I'm hearing is don't try and read my mind, just ask me what I want. What are my problems? And we'll start from there. Now, Mutlu, you have been given the impossible task because you've got less time than the others. But from your point of view, what do you think are the opportunities? And then I want to give at least 10 minutes for questions. So if you have a question, please frame it now, because I know there will be questions, and keep them short if you don't mind. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Maybe for the sake of time, I'll just keep it very short. One opportunity that I genuinely think would be very interesting and we need a lot more work on is the fact that most of the existing AI technologies have been focusing on pedagogies that are quite traditional, and a lot of the existing AI work focuses on, and AI tools focus on how do we support these very traditional direct instruction approaches. But most of the learning outcomes that we are genuinely interested in, improving students' higher order thinking skills, their creativity, their collaboration, most of these skills are very difficult to be supported with this kind of pedagogy. So one opportunity there, I think, is to work on designing, developing, and evaluating AI technologies that would support those learning outcomes that relate to higher order thinking skills. You know, those pedagogies like more constructivist, more constructionist pedagogies to be supported with AI. I think it's an important opportunity area.
Brilliant answer. Okay, questions. Now, I'm assuming you have lots of questions. So Neil up the back, and there's questions over here. Yeah, and up here. Yeah. So maybe we could have two microphones. There's another microphone here.
So
Deirdre, so you got in first, Deirdre. Good.
yeah. Okay, so I've listened to all the panel and very interesting ideas, etc. But I think taking Wayne's point about going back to sort of teacher center, and then your point about actually sort of looking at sort of, you know, pedagogies and everything else, it all hinges on, and we're all making a huge assumption that everybody understands what is meant by learning, and everybody has the same understanding. So the first place, what we need to do first is when you get teachers in a room, you could have 100 teachers and everybody has a very different understanding of what learning is. You can get policymakers, you can get parents, you can get students. So there needs to be a common understanding or a common vision of what the purpose of education is and what is actually understood by learning. Then perhaps we can actually start to develop things that will actually help us with the learning process. And I think that's the starting point. So when you talk about traditional pedagogies, that means people understand sort of learning as a transmissive process. And a lot of the developers don't understand learning. So of course they're going to, because they're basing tools on what they understand. So they're doing things that they think will help. So I think we really need to put everybody in a room and everybody think about what is a suitable framework and a model for what learning looks like, and how do we design learning environments that will actually come up to that.
Great,
okay?
Thank you. So what I might do is I might take 3 comments or questions, and that's one. So Neil is up the back there. Sorry, he had his hand up there. Can you see him, Evelyn? And then there's Alice. There's this gentleman is next, and then Alison. And we'll take 2 or 3, and then maybe the panel will respond. Neil.
Okay. I enjoyed listening to Mr. Holmes about being skeptical about AI and mentioning, I also took a couple of notes here regarding policymakers and teachers who 99% don't know how it actually works. And I agree. But the thing is here, private companies and other sectors know how it works. They actually hire specialized people like AI prompt engineers, high paid jobs to do the work that is required. I think that it should be the same in education, because I also heard other comments like we need to change the culture of teacher. Who is going to change the culture of teacher? Is it going to be the teachers again themselves? I mean, we're putting so much on teachers nowadays. I think that the EU Commission, the EU Union needs to start thinking of, I hate to say it, but new jobs to help support teachers in schools. You have an AI professional who is there to help the teachers to see if the policies, the AI Act is being adhered to. I mean, we need to adapt.
Thank
because I
you.
think
I'm going to move you on because I'm just conscious. So I'm hearing what you're saying is we need supports, more supports in schools, kind of like an AI ecosystem in the schools. Yes.
Thank you. One term I think that, and you I think agree about this term that is probably, I don't know if the most important or one of the most important, is ecosystem. And you evoke the term a lot of times. There's a lot of actors around this term ecosystem, but I think Axel synthesizes this in probably three groups when saying research from one side, companies from the other side, and the terrain, so students and teachers on the other side. I think Wayne, I forgot the last name, you gave probably the solution, and this is my question. You say problems that emerge from the terrain, then companies propose solutions for these problems and probably research this works or not. But how do you think that we can put in place these ecosystems if we have these three, for example? In the past, because you mentioned it, that we asked the same questions 100 years ago, and it's true. And if you read the book, I think it's Personalized Learning from an MIT researcher. Yeah, if you read the questions in 1920, they are very similar right now. So if there's examples of this triangulation, how we can put in place for you actually this ecosystem of working, because it's very difficult actually to work on these three groups of actors that compose the ecosystem.
And we might take one last one and then we'll hand it back to the panel. And yeah. Yeah, Alison.
I would like to ask the panel if perhaps I am naive when I think that AI is just the iPad of this year.
Very simple question. Okay, who wants to take the first question? And that was Deirdre. Do we understand what learning is? What should we do about this? Anyone? Wayne, do you want to?
I agree, but I take it further. I think it's wrong to focus on learning full stop. I think it's about education. So for me, education, learning is a fundamental component of education, but it's not the whole thing. And so for me, the bigger question is, what do we think education should be doing? And where does learning play a role in that? But we also need to think about what are the other ways in which the schools function and teachers function. You know, teachers don't just get information from A to B. That's not what they've ever done. That's not what they do. And so how do we ensure that when we give them the support and training on the one hand and access to tools on the other hand, that they're actually engaging in that conversation? How do I make the education that I provide, that I'm a member of a team of providing, it's not just the teacher on their own, how do we do that effectively? So I would completely agree, we need to think about these fundamental issues. And, you know, we all remember when the pandemic hit, it was, oh my God, this is going to change education. Everybody said, oh, this is going to change education. And there were lots of conferences about this is changing education. And of course, since the pandemic, we've done everything to make sure we go back to exactly what we were before. Now people are saying AI is going to change education. And well, we'll see.
Yeah, it reminds me of a story I had with an Irish principal during lockdown. He said to me that face-to-face teaching was the gold standard. And I looked at him and I said, well, I've been in face-to-face teaching as a student, hasn't always been the gold standard. But anyway.
Can I just add a very quick thing? There is a school in Texas that announced at the end of November that they no longer had teachers. They no longer had teachers. Now, I'm not saying, you know, it's one school, right? I get that. But they are arguing we no longer have teachers. The students in the morning will engage with an AI system, and in the afternoon, they will have adults called guides.
Next question, Margarita, I've been thinking of you on the one that Neil raised about this need for a kind of a set of supports for teachers on AI in the school. What are your thoughts on that, or how can we better support them?
Oh my God. Yeah, sorry. Yes, this is a question that is impacting me. Yeah, it's definitely, I think in education, it's a matter of human relations, and definitely if we want to support change in humans, it's super important. There are other persons that are supporting them. And there's these NGOs that, for example, and Kids Code Genes in Canada, Daniela, the were doing this amazing work of saying, okay, any teachers who wants to explore programming, creative programming in the classroom can be in contact with someone who comes in the classroom and support them. Then these kind of things about trying to facilitate any teachers who wants to reflect on the integration or to experiment something, to have a human support in order to develop this kind of exploration and innovation. I think it's super important, and there's this big issue of continuous training, then how we support in-service teachers on their training. I think it's super, it's a big issue in most educational systems, and then how we can open the possibilities, not just for this official training system to support the teachers, but also how, in addition of the MOOCs, there could be other sessions and in which we can experiment things and do activities maybe in third places like this Maison de l'IA or in Terra Numérica and other places in which teachers can come and experience these things, helped by persons that are supporting them in their understanding of the needs, because at the end is about what we are doing in this kind of activities is always saying to the teacher, what do you need? What is the important thing for you? And this is something that only another more knowledgeable another human can do with value. Yeah.
Okay. And Mutlu, I don't know if you again have an impossible challenge, but there was a question about ecosystem and about, is this the new iPad? What are your thoughts, final comments to you, and then I'll hand to Daniela to close.
Right. Thank you very much. I think maybe one quick comment about the key stakeholder interactions. I think, I mean, traditionally, key stakeholders of AI in education and educational technology broadly have been working in silos, and I don't really think that this has been doing any good. This whole key stakeholder interactions and problem scoping and then solution proposition is not really such a linear process where if you have a problem, you can always provide a solution, or when you have certain solutions that does not have any impact on the initial problem scoping. I do agree about the value of bringing in key stakeholders, and you have mentioned companies and teachers, and you also mentioned about the students and teachers, but I would also add like policymakers as part of this equation, and the researchers as well within this equation. So it's a broad ecosystem, and we have methodologies for those people to work as part of this participatory problem scoping and co-designing solutions together. It is not really a linear system of if you go to one particular stakeholder, ask their problems, and then we can provide certain solutions to this. It's a lot more hectic and iterative than this, in my opinion. I'll stop here.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. I mean, I would like to thank you, our panelists, for really having opened up many aspects of teaching with AI. And when I look around, I see many question marks, but I think this is perfectly okay for a panel. Like, I feel like we open up more questions than we might have had before, but this is perfectly fine. And I really like to thank you for that. And we would be happy. And I think some of you can stay with us. So please feel free to get in contact and to continue the discussion. Thanks a lot.